Okay, so in chapter 3, we looked at the 5 iron rules of output, and that was a very practical, principle-based outlook on productivity. And it included some of the time-tested principles that are really worth writing down and reviewing often and coming back to whenever you feel like you're getting distracted by the new shiny productivity system. Now in chapter 4, we're going to get into space and intention. So can you just tell me what you mean by space and intention as it relates to productivity?
Yeah, everything we're about to cover is really just scaffolding or supporting context to help you do everything we've already covered. We've covered the vast majority or the meat of the entire thing, and we're getting essentially into technicals, but they are all in service and support of what we've already covered. Probably the biggest thing with space and intention is knowing what you're about to do. It sounds almost silly to talk about this, but when someone sits down, they often will just jump to either the red bubble notification, either the chat that is ongoing in Slack, or most habitually, I think, is email inboxes. And a lot of the stuff we've covered so far is 99% of the time, that's not going to be the thing that deserves your time, energy, and attention. So creating space for this stuff, and by space, I mean almost every interpretation of it. Physical space for it, mental space for it, emotional space for it, and an intention actually coming down. And you can take this extremely literally. One of the things I recommend to a lot of people in programs like the Ascent that we've done is literally get sticky notes and just write down, I'm about to do X, and like slap it on your computer or slap it on the wall behind you, slap it to your forehead, like literally whatever helps you. But what are you about to do in this working chunk? It's basically intention. Yeah. And to double click on space, is your physical space, your environment, your context actually helping, hindering, or hampering what you're about to do? Do you have the mental space, clarity, and focus to actually sit down and execute what you're about to do? And if anyone has ever tried to go into work after a breakup or sit down and write after an argument, emotional space or lack of emotional space will significantly impact what you can do, to the point of why are you even trying to do it if you're physically or metaphorically claustrophobic as you're about to work? You're literally lacking that space. Because there's a huge difference, and particularly as people really start to focus on this more and more, you'll notice that you can get done in a 30-minute session that is like really dialed in 5 or 6 times more than you can do in 4 to 5 hours of absolutely just messing around, just clicking out and being distracted. It's remarkable, actually, because again, we've already spoken to this. You can go your whole day, if not your whole week, literally not doing the 1 or 2 things that were actually most significant for you. One of the kind of step further than that is the recognition that the 1 or 2 things that you really need to do probably will only take you like an hour or 2 of serious work. It's not like they're at least maybe per day. Some major projects, yeah, for sure, they'll take longer, but the actual thing you needed to do right here, right now is probably an hour or 2 of focused work, whether it's research, writing. So it's actually, it is a force multiplier to have your space set up really well and to have a really clear intention on, by the end of this, I'm going to have done whatever it is. And if you can habitualize that, like if you can really ritualize and make that a routine, again, it is a absolute multiplier on what you can, both the quality and quantity of what you can start putting out.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think so. A lot of people think that, 1 or 2 hours of work is not enough to do anything significant. And that's because they're probably using their existing work systems and thinking, well, I know how much I can do in 7 hours. How can I possibly do that much in like 1 or 2 hours? It's because the way that you're working during those 7 hours is like very distracted, suboptimal. Even today, like a recent thing that happened is I went on Instagram specifically looking to see someone's posts. And then I spent like 5 minutes on it and then came out of it without seeing the person's post that I went on it to see, because it just completely like distracted me. And I was like, holy shit, that's happening like all the time. Whenever I look at my phone, it's just sucking me into different vortexes. So the other thing as well that comes up is you talk about the right energy and intention when it comes to work. I think a good similar kind of analogy would be the energy that you bring to an exam. So, you know, when you're in school and you really care about an exam, the way that you show up for that 1 hour, you know, it's like you're alert, you're engaged, you're focused. Like imagine if every hour of work could have that kind of, you know, context around it where like, I'm here, I'm dialed in, I know what I'm going to do. Yeah, that would be wild actually, to bring that kind of, you know, hyper-focused exam energy. So can you talk a little bit about prepping your workspace? Like what would that look like? And, you know, you can also talk about prepping your mental space as well while you're there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have a cardinal go-to for these recommendations, particularly as someone is kind of building this up or getting started in it, which is cut as much out as possible, quite frankly. Cut as much out as you can, and only when you've identified that you actually need something beyond it, you can bring it back in. In the context of physical space, like literally get rid of everything. It's super helpful if you're actually staring against a wall, right? If you can't look out and see a whole bunch of distractions, right? Because even as you're trying to just focus on the paper, the screen, whatever, your eye will get caught, and again, you'll suddenly have 15 minutes gone of like, wait, what just happened? Because someone walked past my computer. In the digital context, this is close absolutely everything. Your devices should make absolutely no noise for you, like pinging notifications, phone calls, vibrations, all of this stuff is a domino effect of distraction, basically. You get that one ping, you get distracted, it goes off, and it just starts steamrolling on itself, and then suddenly you're in the kitchen cruising Twitter or something like that, all off of just one really minor thing. There's a huge cost. There's a physical, mental, emotional cost of always having to bring yourself back to what you're trying to do. It adds up considerably. And so actually just eliminating as much of that as possible right off the bat, I think is the way to go. Yeah, clean your desk. Like these things they seem almost too basic, and that's probably the point. This stuff doesn't need to be complicated. Get rid of literally everything. If you're going to add anything, make it beautiful or inspirational, right? Desktop backgrounds, living plants, living beings on your desk, as minimal of a distraction as possible, right? Even just like full screening everything on your computer, right? Having like 4 different windows all at the same time is, again, there's a cost of literally going to all of these different contexts really quickly. It might actually be worth speaking in the context of space right here, right now, the myth of multitasking. And actually, this goes hand in hand, right, with the entire ethos of the cult of busyness, which is multitasking just does not exist. It's highly rapid single tasking. It's basically all it is, right? Even in the context of your own single computer screen, right? Or the most obvious one is going from your phone to your computer to your monitor to something in the world. It's like you are diverting single focus attention to all of these things really quickly. It's not like you can actually put your attention in multiple places at once. It's just constantly going back and forth. And that back and forth, that oscillation is a huge cost. It's a huge cognitive cost, like physiologically. It's also a huge cost to your just focus and attention. that essentially brings us full circle to cultivate a space that actually funnels your attention in a single direction, and an intention that is as singular as possible. It's all just trying to get you to lock in on the single thing that you need to do. There are two things that are really helpful as well in developing intention and space, which is your body and your mind really like consistency. It really helps you go back into the same state over and over again. So actually having a dedicated workspace is really nice. If you work from home or if you work from an office, that's a lot more accessible, a lot more apparent. You are always in that context. If you travel, it can be the context of the coffee shop. It might be different, but at least it's a similar kind of archetypal space. And a ritual. You can actually ritualize getting started with work. I just found something recently that was really interesting. Actually, it came up in Metamorphosis, the digital retreat we just ran. One of the speakers brought up that there's actually basically a ramp up time for your body to recognize that it's about to get into work mode. It's like 5 to 7 minutes. And we can actually get down on ourselves or be overly hard on ourselves when we can't just sit down and start locking in immediately. Well, of course you can't. Your body literally can't do that. So actually having a kind of starting ritual before you start work is really helpful. And that could be anything from just sitting butt in chair, meditating for a few minutes while your body kind of adjusts its rhythm. It could be listening to a set of music or a set of songs to get started and really open. It could be, quite frankly, anything. You could light incense. You could use certain smells. Anything that starts triggering, because over time, your body will recognize, oh, we're now doing the work thing. We're now sitting down for a focused period, and it'll actually, again, force amplify or accelerate the entire process of really sitting down and being able to lock in for things. Yeah, getting your senses involved in that. If it's something you look at, if it's something you listen to, if it's something you smell, or if it's something you do with your hands, after ritualizing that, your body will get the message and really sit down. And I'm going to cut that.
What are some rituals that you currently play around with?
Yeah, actually, there are a few ways to answer this, because my ritual or routine for work starts the day before. This is extremely powerful. And if someone actually only implemented one of these, I would recommend this, which is write down the most important things you want to get done tonight. Actually, your brain will start going to work on them while you sleep, and you can wake up and just be like, oh yeah, of course I needed to do it that way. I need to go talk to this person. Actually get your body on your own side with that. So ritualizing, and this is like a 30-second process. It could also be an hour process. It depends on what you want to do. Literally just on your notes app on your computer, on a Post-it note, just these are the 3 things that if I did them tomorrow, everything would be great. Just write them down. Beyond that, there are really 2 things. One is I almost always have tea. Tea is like an indicator for me of like, we are going to sit down for a significant amount of time and do something. So a kind of physical marker. And then I've shared this with a few people, and I think we can actually put the link to this down below, which is the most consistent working ritual or intention setting mechanism I have is a song that I use for writing. And I mean, over the years, I've done a lot of writing. It's about 18 minutes long, no audio whatsoever, slow, smooth, rhythmic. And I just loop that. I literally have it on Spotify, just one song repeat, and I will listen to it until I'm done whatever it is I'm working on. Because immediately, and particularly because this has been in my life for several years now, immediately once that comes on, you can actually feel it in your nervous system. Body is like, oh, we are going to lock in now. Let's go. Like, I'm ready. I know literally what this song means. and it just prepares itself. So I think the three of those would be at least the longest lasting kind of work rituals or setups that I have, which is planning out a day, preparing physical space, and cues, I guess, like flow cues. And I've met people who do it other ways, right? That's just what I've landed on over months, weeks, months, and years of playing around with these.
It's really interesting to see my mind as you talk about that, because even though you're talking about a lot of principles and powerful ideas over these chapters, as soon as you mention this 18-minute song, my mind starts thinking that this is a magical productivity song, and that if only I listen to it, I'll be as focused as you, like forgetting everything else. Which is like, on the one hand, that actually can work, because by kind of putting that song on a kind of prestigious level, that kind of makes me show up more when I listen to it, similar to the new app. But it's also like slightly inaccurate to think about it that way. Like the song is a supplement to all the other things that you have dialed in. And I just want to mention this here, that I think what would be a really good idea is if we could include a Notion template that gives people an example of like a journaling ritual to set up their work block, you know, something that they can use as a jumping off point and then modify it to suit their own needs. But that could be like a really good way for us to like, okay, like every time we go to work now, let's start with this simple template and run through it.
Yeah. And two more things on this. It's really, I think, important to underscore that you have to mess around with it for yourself, right? The thing that works for someone really almost should not work for you, because you're not the same person as them. I've actually shown the song that I write to a bunch of people. Some people don't like it, and some people find it really distracting because there's a kind of like native pan flute in it, and some people find the actual like tone of that sound really distracting. For me, it's fantastic. I absolutely love it. But you can just see the mixed reactions to that. But the principle of music can really help actually entrain your focus and lock you in. I think applies to everyone just by nature of being human. Yeah. And I mean, there are also several playlists, right? There are also several playlists you can find. And if you find one song, there's almost levels to the song thing, where, like slow, rhythmic, almost a trance-like state is probably the way to go. Lyrics are really distracting. The thing that I've come to notice over time is that I even find playlists of songs like that distracting, because you're still cycling different songs. You're still cycling different things in my mind. You can catch it. It's like, oh, right, we're now listening to something different. It's like, well, I'm not trying to focus on the music. I'm trying to use the music to drown out anything else so that I can keep locking in. And really I think the final point on space and intention is all of this. And this is what I meant by it being a supportive scaffolding. The only thing this is trying to get you to do, this is a term I found, and I'll include the original article down below, is bring about a state of monomaniacal focus. Like you are just intensely, singularly focused on what you're doing. That's it. Because that level of focus, and again, to the extent that you can cultivate that, I'm not trying to paint this as some unreachable godlike state, like just as focused as you can be, and hopefully improving that over time. That's the entire name of the game, particularly for space and intention, because this is what I meant about the difference of getting, an incredible amount done in an hour or two versus 3 to 4 days. The specific mechanism that makes that difference is focus, like literally being extremely locked in on it. And so everything here is just creating the context that is conducive to really deep, sharp focus.
I love that. And like even looking outside of productivity, like, I think we can all say that the best times in our lives weren't times when we were just multitasking. You know, like the best times in our life include like a singular focus, right? Like whatever that is. So I would say like it makes us get things done more efficiently, but it also makes us happier. You know, like spending time with your children while multitasking, is that going to lead to like good memories? You know, obviously not. So, okay, cool. So some really good stuff. Do you have anything else on that?
Yeah, final note on that, because this is almost one of it's like a ripple or a second order effect of this stuff, which is, I completely agree with you. This is a classic, one of, at least for me, one of Sam Harris's most classic lines, which is, basically a focused mind is intrinsically beautiful. It's like intrinsically meaningful. Just actually being here now, you can feel it in your body. Almost every major significant or valuable or meaningful moment in your life included essentially singular focus on whatever was happening, whether that's at a festival, whether that's in a ceremony, whether that's a night with friends, whether that's out dancing, whether it's writing poetry, whatever it is. Almost as a given assumption is the fact that you're only focused on that thing, and actually trying to cultivate and improve your own ability to be focused has a ripple effect far beyond work and productivity and output. It's it impacts your life and the meaning of your life deeply. And I mean, even if it doesn't help your productivity, learning to focus and learning to cultivate and bring back focus is, deeply meaningful, period.